Editor Michael Heim here with our reviewer for Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls, Mitchell Saltzman. You may know him as the guy who's reviewed pretty much many fighting games here at IGN. A lot of hard action games as well, a lot of the in the vein of the Souls likes. And you've been to Evo many times. You made it out of the pools once or twice?
Once. Oh man, okay. I wish I had my wallet to show my Chipotle card, but
oh man, yeah, many Chipotle cards over at Evo. Mitch has seen it all, and we have another big game from Arc System Works. Now, we did not get review copies in advance, so this discussion is based mostly on your open beta impressions and your time with it. You put many hours into it. So for folks who want to get an idea of what they're getting into if they're going to play this game, that's what we're going to be talking about. Mitch, I want to throw it to you for your top level thoughts on Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls.
Top level thoughts, it's funny, you said initial impressions. My initial impressions actually weren't as glowing as they eventually became. I think a part of it is coming off of, I just did the review for Avatar Legends, the fighting game. And it's funny, I feel like those two games are almost like on polar ends of the spectrum, just because I love the way that Avatar Legends plays in my hands. Like that game is just so much fun to press buttons in, to do combos, there's such a freeing sense of mobility, and you're not really tied down by universal mechanics, and it's just a really great game to play. But it's lacking a lot of other areas outside of the core fighting. Whereas coming to Tokon, I didn't have that free feeling, it's a little more restrictive, or it's a lot more restrictive. You are tied down to the way that these mechanics work. The tag system is a little more restrictive than anything I'm compared to. The assist system as well, it's a little more restrictive. It takes a little bit to get used to the 4v4 format, where you start off with only 2 characters, and you basically have to unlock the rest of the characters as you go. So my first initial impressions were kind of middling. But I think once you understand what this game is, what it isn't, and you accept the mechanics for what they are, and you learn how to play within the sandbox that they've established, I think Tokon really does come alive. I think the characters are sick as hell. They look amazing. Their movesets are kitted to be really, they really pull from what these characters do in Marvel Comics in a way that I haven't seen them do before with the Marvel vs. Capcom games. And it's just a lot of fun to see the spectacle of it. So initial impressions, a little middling, but once I played a little more and got to understand how the game worked, I became much more of a fan of how this game is played.
Okay, so it would be fair to say that it takes time to really grasp those systems, and once you do, it kind of starts to sing. Now, I think that's an important topic to hit on, because I think there's 2 sides that are coming into this game. The more casual fighting game fans who are here for Marvel, and then you have people who have played every Arc System Works game and are looking at this as the next big game that they're going to be grinding. They're going to be in the lab. So I want to start with talking about how approachable this game is for someone who's ooh, we have Spider-Man, we got all these Marvel characters I know and love. I want to get into this. How approachable would you say it is to them, and what are some of the key takeaways you would say to that sort of crowd?
So it's interesting going back to that Avatar comparison, how they're kind of on the polar ends of the spectrum. Avatar is a game that is not very immediately beginner friendly. You have auto combos, but they don't really do a lot of damage, and the characters are very advanced in terms of what they can do and what you have to be able to do in order to use them to their fullest potential. On the other hand, Tokon, the auto combos are very powerful.
Okay.
And I think that was one of the things that turned me off initially from it, was the fact that when you're playing a beta and you're going up against people who are also new to a beta, it kind of just feels like you're just all mashing buttons, and whoever mashes buttons better in the right spots is the one who comes out victorious. So in that way, I think you can come into Tokon without a lot of experience of playing fighting games, mash on some buttons, and you'll see some really cool stuff happening, and you'll have a good time. That said, there is a lot to learn beyond that that floor, basically. That establishes the floor, and then there's a lot of things that you can do on top of that really add to the skill expression of the game. And I think it's pretty good. I'm historically not a huge fan of auto combos. I understand their inclusion in Tokon. I would probably prefer the game without them because I don't really use them myself. But I do think it is something that people are going to come into the game. They're going to be able to pick a character and very quickly understand how to use that character at a very basic level. And I think that's probably a positive for it.
Okay. So for someone who lives in the lab, who's out here like really trying to perfect combos, can you speak a little bit more about the more in-depth mechanics? Like Arc System Works fighting games can be as advanced as you want them to be, and they've historically had very good tutorials. I got really in tune with Under Night thanks to its very advanced tutorial system. So what have you picked up on as you have tried to get more into the more in-depth mechanics, combo strings, air juggling, how to wield the tag system in the best way possible? Can you give a little bit more insight on how you feel about that aspect?
Yeah, so there's a lot of universal mechanics in terms of like what you can do on defense. There's a universal overhead that leads to a combo that increases in strength the more characters that you have unlocked on your team. It's pretty much the active tag system from BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle and 2XKO, but with heavy restrictions on it. 2XKO, as soon as you bring in an assist, you can swap to them. There's really no limit to it, unless if you get hit, then you can't swap to them because you basically lost the opportunity. In Tokon, you have to active tag, and for those that don't know, active tag basically means you call an assist, they come on screen, they do an attack, and you can press a button to swap to them while they're on screen. In Tokon, you have like a very small window of when you're able to actually do that active tab comparatively to other games that have the system. And I believe it's meant as a way to kind of reduce the craziness that is involved with active tag. You can do a lot of wild things like call someone in, jump over their head, attack them from behind, then switch to the other character. So you basically sandwich them. That is not as common of a thing that's going to happen in Tokon compared to other tag games like 2XKO, like BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle. So it's a little more restrictive in that way. There's definitely sauce to this game, is what I'll say. There's a lot of cool stuff you can do with the unique aspects of the character of each character. Every character has a unique button that kind of grounds their kit. For example, Spider-Man, his unique button allows him to web zip, so he can zip to the ceiling and fake out a jump, but then change his jump arc and open you up that way. There's a lot of really cool things that different characters can do with that unique button. So yeah, I do think that there's a lot of really interesting things to dig into long term that will that people will find out and develop the meta as the game goes on.
Right. Yeah. That's the thing about fighting games. Like, the meta is either ever evolving or it just takes time for people to figure out. And of course, that is part of the process when you get enough time with the full game. And also another thing too is, this roster is pretty crazy. Everyone kind of has their favorite character who is in this roster. It's pretty well represented, I would say, of Marvel, the universe of Marvel. So how are you feeling about both the roster, the character representation, and just like the art style and how they're portrayed in this game?
I think it's a pretty good starting roster. I mean, I think everyone will say that they want more X-Men.
Yeah.
But I think creating a good starting roster for a fighting game is about getting those like must-haves in there. Putting some characters that are kind of like cult favorites that people will rally behind. And then you also want to include some weirdos, some people that you are introducing to the fan base for the first time. And I think in that way, Tokon has a good spread. It's got the Captain America, it's got Iron Man, it's got Spider-Man, etc. And then it's got really cool, characters that I think a smaller section of fans will enjoy, but those that enjoy it will really enjoy it, like Blade, like Green Goblin and stuff like that. And then you have the kind of offbeat weirdos like Danger, the embodiment of the Danger Room from X-Men. That said, we're missing Gambit, we're missing Nightcrawler. I think there's a lot of characters that most people would immediately think, oh yeah, that, Gambit would be such a perfect Marvel fighting game character, and he's not in there. So I guess we just gotta cross our fingers and hope for DLC. But I think by and large, this is a pretty solid starting roster and a good amount of characters as well.
Yeah, that's a pretty good point, because I remember the MVC2 days in the arcade. Like, some of the best characters are just ones I'd never even knew about from my limited knowledge of Marvel, but they kind of like took on their own personality, because in the FGC, like, everybody loves certain characters in MVC2, even though you don't see them in the movies or in the comics as much anymore. So that's always a fun aspect of a game like this.
Yeah. Who heard of Silver Samurai and Marrow before Marvel vs. Capcom or X-Men vs. Street Fighter? Yeah, that's the fun part of fighting games like this. So you have a lot more to dig into. So I kind of want to give you an opportunity to talk through and explain your review process now that you've just got your hands on the full version, and how what folks should expect in the coming days, and then once you hit that full review. My main priority when I first get the game is I'm going to go through story mode. The story mode is apparently like 10 hours long. Just looking at the chapter lists, it's a little overwhelming. Like, oh man, they really went all out here. So basically the way it's broken up is all the teams that are in the game, the roster is broken up into like a bunch of teams of 4, and it follows each team basically has their own chapter or has their own chapter list. And I got to play the first chapter with Spider-Man and his amazing friends, and it was pretty good. I really enjoyed it, but I gotta see how that holds up throughout the whole experience. And that's going to be a big part of how I ultimately feel about the game. I know there's a lot of people that think story modes don't matter in fighting games. They do. They matter for a large amount of people.
Yeah.
And then after that, I want to check out the training tools. I think training tools are a big part of any fighting game. How do you get your player base to get better at the game so that they stick around? There's a bunch of other cool things that this game's going to have. It has a huge lobby system that I want to mess around with. There's a weird party mode that they just revealed. It's similar to Grand Brews if you played Grand Blue Fantasy vs. Rising. So I want to play around with that. I'm going to check it and see if they have like replay takeover and all those things. The elephant in the room is that the PC beta was not good. It had a lot of performance issues. It was causing people who matched with people who were playing on PC to have really laggy matches, because like the people who were playing on the other side, their gameplay was so chuggy, so it was affecting the person that they were playing against. So I need to see how the PC performance is and how that affects the online experience. My goal is to have something ready for Tuesday of next week, and if I can get it earlier, then I'll do my best to do that.
All right, man. Thanks for chilling with us to talk about Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls. Be on the lookout for Mitchell's full review in the coming days. As he stated, he's going to be putting a lot of time into it, and this game is a big deal. So be on the lookout for more coverage at IGN. And if you want more reviews from Mitch, check out his review of the Avatar fighting game and 2XKL. And for everything else in the world of games, stick with IGN.